All right, this is an interview for Betty Blake, my mother. So, Mom, tell me, what are some of your first memories?
My first memories, when we lived in Waldo, Arkansas, I was about 2 or 3. My first memory is of me leaving my crayons on the steps of the, we always lived next to the Methodist church. I left my crayons on the steps, and they melted and just ruined the steps of the church. Oh, my parents were so mad at me. Didn't even know what I'd done wrong. And for the longest time, that those crayons were on that steps. Those steps. That's my first memory.
All right. What do you remember about the Great Depression?
Well, see, that came a little bit after me. I was born in '29, and the Depression was early part of the 30s.
It was all the way up to 37.
Well, see, the
38.
Depression really didn't affect us because being preachers' children, no matter how bad it was, the farmers would bring, the only way we lived, I can remember when my father made his first $100 a month. So we had to live according to what our parishioners brought us.
Yeah.
So we always had vegetables, and my mother canned them. Meat was just unknown in our family. Pork, we'd have pork, but I didn't know what chicken and steak tasted like. Very little the Depression, but as I say, it didn't affect the minister's family.
Okay. So, schooling, what do you remember about your schooling?
My school, I started school in Glenwood. We lived on the bottom of a hill, and to get to the school, you walked up this hill. And so every morning we would have to walk up this hill. I remember my first teacher was Miss Fair, and I always liked school, and I was always good at school. That's all I have memory of. And of course, all my brothers and sisters were there, you know.
Yeah. Now, you're the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
All right. So where did you meet Dad? How'd you meet him?
I met him when I was teaching school, the second year I taught school. The home ec teacher was my roommate, and she told me she had someone she wanted me to meet. Her boyfriend was a friend of Charles's. And I was at the Methodist church one time in the basement, and she brought him, and I said to myself, what a hick. He had a pair of cowboy boots on. And I labeled cowboy boots with a hick, and I said, that is some kind of hick. But I'm going to tell you something. He was his mama taught him well. He was a real gentleman.
Yeah.
He treated me opening doors and standing behind me, you know, and put my share. I said, I didn't know men acted like that. But
So what were your parents like?
my father was, of course, being a minister, he was very authoritative, and he was a kind person. He just was an authority figure to me, and I don't ever remember him ever touching me, holding me on his lap or anything. He was just an authority figure to me, but he was a kind man. And my mother was a little spitfire. She was a hot cook. Reminds me a lot of what Paul's kids were like. She was just a hot. Of course, she raised 12 children in all, so she had
What do you
reason.
expect?
By the time she got, man, I was there, middle. They were middle-aged when I was born, so I never knew them when they were young.
So what do you know about your grandparents?
Very little. Of course, I didn't know they were middle-aged when my parents were. I just only know what my father has told me. His mother was where the red came into our family. She was auburn haired, beautiful. They say she had beautiful auburn hair, and that's where that red comes into our family. And he was a child of the second. No, he was a child. He was the last child of a first marriage. He was a baby of a first marriage, and then she died when my father was 2. His mother died, and they had married again. Married a really, really nice person named Maggie, and she helped raise Dad. But he always remembered his mother as well. Said she was a beautiful redhead.
Are you talking?
And his father was a state representative. I don't think you knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
Was a state representative from northern Arkansas. And his picture is at the Capitol.
Okay.
Benjamin.
What's his name?
Benjamin.
Benjamin Armstrong?
Benjamin Armstrong. He fought in the Civil War. He was a courier.
Okay.
My grandfather, as hard as it believed, fought in the Civil War. I think he was 16 years old and was shot in the side or something.
Wow.
She may be already.
And my mother, you wanted to ask me, I didn't know my mother's parents. The story is that the grandparent, great-grandparent came down the White River on a raft. He was about 4 or 5 years old. He was by himself. And they took him off at St. Charles, and somebody raised him. And so we know very little about the Parker family back from there.
Parker, okay. Well, tell us about your brothers and sisters.
Oh, heavens. Well,
Start
course-
with the oldest and then
Yeah.
come down to it that way.
of course, Lois and Norma and almost James, I don't remember them ever being at home. I just visited them. That's all I ever knew. Lois was, Mary was she had won a scholarship. The one who died, she had already won a scholarship to a conservatory of music in Chicago. Was getting ready to go, and had a beautiful coloratura voice, high. Could sing like they said. She sounded like an angel, and she missed going. She died in April or something. Was supposed to go that fall to Chicago. Then I didn't know her, but they say she was real sweet. Then Lois was quiet and didn't tell a lot. Say she was real sweet and always wrote me. She'd write me letters and tell me how much she loved me. She'd bring me to her house, and that's all I ever knew of her. Bring me to her house and cook what I wanted to eat. And just babied me, just loved me to death. And Sue, her oldest child, and I were just 7 years apart. So Sue always said I felt more like a sister to her than I did me. She always treated me like a sister. And Sue still calls me. And then came Norma, and God help us all.
Stormy.
Stormy, that's what she called him Pie, and he called her Stormy. She ranted and raved all her life. She met him when he was in law school in Glenwood. We were living in Glenwood, where I started school. And he just loved Norma to death, but she was just a tiger. She was just a tiger. Knew everything there was to know. And she was pretty smart. And let's see who came next. James. James was a sweetheart. I had some really sweet brothers. James was a gentle, kind, sweet man. He eloped with his sweetheart in Glenwood. Oh, I thought my mother was going to die 10,000 times. He eloped with his high school, when they were in high school. They eloped. Oh. His wife was a judge's daughter in town. Really a judge's daughter. And my mother thought she was not good enough for her first son. She threw it. My mother had a temper like a wildcat. Anyway, that was exciting for a couple of years. They loved each other to the end of their life. Very, very attached to each other. Had 2 daughters who turned out to be accountants, and made all kinds of money. So he had an electric shop. He was an electrician and owned his own shop. And let's see who came after him. James. Tim. And Tim was about like Norma. He was always a liar and a thief. No, he wasn't really. He was sweet, but he did tend to tell tall tales. He went through the Second World War. He was in New Guinea, had typhus and almost died, and he came back and never was well very much after that. After he had typhus, he died, when he was about 77. But he was never very healthy after that. But he and Norma together, and you've never heard such exaggerated stories in your life. Let's see, who was it? I believe it was Tim and Norma that walked up Caddo Mountain. One of them was bit by a snake, bit by a rattlesnake, and they bound the leg and got him down. One or 2 of them, they were up there looking for arrowheads.
Got bit by a rattlesnake.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Just bound his leg and brought him down. And Tim was such a character. He was after he got back from New Guinea, he was at Randolphville. Then Katie was a nurse in the Navy. She took care of the ones that were brought back from overseas in such terrible condition. They were in very good outcome. That's where they brought all the terribly wounded ones after the war. She took care of them. She was just an LVN, but she was pretty good. She always worked for doctors' offices. Had 2 children. And I liked her husband. Let's see who's next. Sam was another sweetheart. He laughed all the time. Told talk tales. He and Sam and Norma together were just all terrible. They were just awful together. And he laughed constantly. And when the first man went to the moon, was Armstrong, he said, well, they would like to ship all of us up there. Oh. Sam lived in Houston, had 4 children, and stayed in Houston. He was a contractor. Then, of course, you know, Sis came next.
Yeah.
Sis was real special to me. Sis was almost more religious than I could bear. Kind of like Laura, she was ultra religious. So I gave him fits. I was a little irreverent around him just to torment the life out of him. I knew how to do that. And Sis she decided she was going to go to Little Rock. We were living in Sheridan. She's going to go to Little Rock and make her fortune. So she had $10. She called us to Little Rock. Got in with a group of women who had 1 room, and they were all. And so she found herself a job as a secretary. And she became one of the division managers at the federal job.
Yeah.
And she worked herself up. And
Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, Corps of Engineers. She lost her husband.
All right. So we were talking about Aunt Sis.
Sis, we were talking about Sis.
Okay.
And she had $10. She got on the bus and went to Little Rock and worked herself up to where she was one of the administrators in the Corps of Engineers. And her husband had Huntington's. He called me, and we were living in New Mexico, and he called me and asked me if we could come home. So we came home. We took some time off and came home. And had a good time. And when I knew he was in bad shape when he called, but I didn't know what was getting ready to happen. He wanted to see us before he died. And we went home.
Did he know he had Huntington's? Did he know he had
Oh, yeah.
Huntington's?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. His mother had Huntington's. They didn't know what it was at the time. They thought she was just crazy.
Yeah.
She died in a mental institution. And then they had to go all the way to Mayo's Clinic to diagnose him with Huntington's. But they told the Mayo Clinic told him, Charles Mayo told him that about 70% of the people with Huntington's commit suicide because it's such a horrible disease. Most of them kill themselves. We went home, and and as we left, he was holding the back fender of our car, and he followed us down the drive holding the back fender. I should have known so was that. And we got home. We didn't get unpacked until Sis called me and told me we committed suicide. He wanted to see us before he died.
Yep.
And so she lost her youngest son to suicide with Huntington's, and now her daughter is dying of Huntington's. And she was a good human being. My sister was. She is. I know you don't know this, but she is talking to me. Has been for about 6 weeks. Has been talking.
What's she saying?
She's saying, first time she said, Betty, 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 and I knew it was Sis. I said, Sis? Just her voice.
Mm-hmm.
And the next night she said, Betty and Bill, Betty and Bill. I think she was trying to identify herself. She said, Betty and Bill, and then she said, Betty, go, Betty, go, go, do something, Betty, do, go. Win, Betty, win. Just panic it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I kept talking to her. She said, one time she said, can you hear me? First thing she said was, can you hear me, Betty? Can you hear me talking, Betty? And then she said, I could hear you. I guess she's really.
Yeah.
last night she talked to me, and she said, saying last night, go, Betty. She is so desperate about Laura that she won't go.
Yeah.
And I know as well as I'm sitting here that she wants her put somewhere in Sedalia. I know that.
Okay.
Nobody. Who's gonna take you? Can't find anybody. Ricky, Steve will take you in somebody's car.
I need one.
She needs to go turn that on.
Now, you're just finishing up on
Yeah, and
Sis talking to you.
Then Terry in Dallas committed suicide. He wasn't too far along advanced in it, but he saw his daddy suffer from it, and so he was determined he wasn't going to do that. So he committed suicide. Then the youngest girl took it and is now in the last stages of it.
Does she know if any of her children has it?
Well, one of the two will have it. It always hits. With Charlie's family, there were 8 children, 4 of them had it.
Okay.
So Mayo's Clinic told him at least one of the children had it. So
Okay.
it'll either be Chad or Derek that has that. Then Bill. Then there's Bill. Bill was next to me in age, and he was the smartest thing that came down the pike. And my mother was determined to make a minister out of him. So she prayed over him and all that kind of stuff, and he was a good boy. He was her smart boy, and he was her angel. Then I came on. But as a matter of fact, he turned out to be, he was an espionage agent. He was a pilot that flew in the Korean War. Did you know that?
Yep.
He landed a plane and crashed the plane. They were making a training film they were going to use to bring people into the Air Force, and they were making a training film with him, and he ran into the side of the boat, and they had to destroy that training film. He was in the hospital about 6 months, burned really bad. He was a CIA man and taught at Stanford, so he had a very. He was with a dance team, and every time there was some kind of conflict all over the world, the dance team had to go dance.
Okay.
When Finland and Russia were at each other's throat, they had to dance in Finland. So they were using that as an excuse to be there. He told me something before he died, which I thought was so interesting. He said that.
Dance team?
When he was espionage agent, that the safest place, when he traveled, the safest place that he could be in were the Muslim countries. He said they were the most hospitable people on the face of the earth, and he knew if he asked them about anything, they would tell him, and they'd bring him into the house, and they would give him hot tea. And he said, Eddie, the way they feel about it now is different than the way I did, because they were the most hospitable people on the face of the earth. He said, I always felt safe in the Muslim countries. I thought that was so interesting. And he ate granola and raw fish all of his life because he wanted to be healthy, and died at about 72 of heart attacks. That shows that little of the...
72 or 82?
Got somebody take you? Good deal.
72 or 82?
70, yeah. No, Tim died early. Bill was about 82, I think. Lois, Norma. Lois was about 84, Norma was about 82. And Sis was by far, had the most trouble, and yet she was 87.
Yeah.
And if I make it to 85, I will be one of the oldest ones. My sister, I know nobody believes this, but she has broken through and is talking to me. What's next?
Tell us about World War II.
I don't remember too much except my brother's. I do remember I had a ration book, and it's still somewhere. The ration book is still somewhere. It was rationing for sugar, meat. Meat was almost impossible to get. Sugar, coffee, meat, and shoes. You were allowed a couple of pair of shoes a year. That was it. Why shoes? 11. What it was about shoes?
I don't know. Maybe the military needed the leather.
Maybe so. but you
boots.
could not get shoes. And I remember when Pearl Harbor, we were getting ready, it was our Sunday morning, we were getting ready to go to Sunday school. And my dad always turned the radio on. And they announced that Pearl Harbor had been hit, and we were all just floored. He preached a sermon on war that night. And my first cousin went down on the Arizona. C.L. Llewellyn went down on the Arizona. His name is on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Had a first cousin who was shot out of the sky at Normandy. He was parachuted down and was shot before he hit the ground. And his brother, Shane, was in a Japanese prison camp. They tortured him all the time through the war. And he didn't have any fingernails. They had driven bamboo shoots up under the nails, you know. And it was so horrible he wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And he was killed. Curiously enough, he was killed. He stepped out of his car. His wife was going to drive. And a log truck lost a log. He just took his head off, standing
Wow.
outside the car. So he went through that and then died.
Well, what did Dad do in the Army?
He was a plainclothes agent, espionage agent. He was trained at Fort Lewis. And after we married, the FBI checked on us for a long time. He went on one mission to Canada, and he had a cyanide tablet hidden underneath his coat so that they wouldn't catch him. But he was a plainclothes espionage agent.
Well, what was he doing with the parka? I know that some of his military stuff, he had this big old heavy parka that was military.
He was in Fort Lewis, Washington.
Yeah.
But they couldn't see him. All during that, his family couldn't see him at all. He was
Okay.
completely cut off from them.
Okay, so Dad was a spy.
He was a spy.
All right, what do you want to tell us about your kids?
About my what?
About your kids, your children?
My children. Well, I loved my husband, but he liked to drink. And I did not know that when I married him. He was a drinker when I married him, and he would not drink around me because he knew I didn't like that. I never saw him drink a beer around me. And we moved a lot. He was a chemical engineer, mud engineer. Call them mud engineers. They were really chemical engineers. And we started out in Kilgore, Texas. He was doing engineering work. We moved about every year or so, like I did when I was growing up. We had to move every 2 years when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And more than anything on the face of the earth, I wanted home. I wanted a home and I wanted children. I did want more than 1 or 2 children. We decided we were going to have 5. We had 5, but I lost the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Miscarriage. And Ricky was born in St. Vincent's. He was had bad allergies. He was sick, and I was sick during his growing up period. I was sick. Then I got pregnant with Jeff, and he came before I almost couldn't get to the hospital. Just in labor with him for 3 hours, and he came out half grown. It was the biggest baby you ever saw. And Jeff stayed in trouble most of his life. He was like my brother Tim. He laughed about everything. Really wasn't funny, but he laughed about everything. And you know as well as I do, he stayed in trouble all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. He was a funny kid and a strange kid. He had dyslexia, and we did not know it. They didn't know what dyslexia was then. I have pieces of paper with his name written, FFEJ, all over it. He saw it. You know, they see it, J-E-F.
Mm-hmm.
They write their vision, and they write it backwards. So that was and he was left-handed, and his teacher made him write with his right hand. And he started bedwetting, you know, and all, because she tried to make him write with his. I didn't know that.
Well, it's because he broke his fingers, right?
No, she just wanted him to be right-handed.
Okay.
And left-handed people, you can't change them, because it caused all kinds of problems with him.
Wasn't Ricky left-handed?
Hmm?
Isn't Ricky left-handed?
Ricky must have right-handed. Jeff was the one that was so left-handed, and you can't change those children. They should be left-handed. But it really disrupted his life. I wonder maybe with the dyslexia, and as I say, they didn't know what dyslexia was. Then you came along. You were a little tiny thing, most beautiful baby I ever saw in my life. the nurses didn't want to bring you to me. You were just about 5 pounds. Didn't want to bring you in there because they wanted to play with your hair. And every time they would bring you, of course, they kept you in the hospital then 7 or 8 days with baby. And they would bring you in. They would have your hair fixed different every time they did part it. And they would put it, and it would just ring around your fingers. It was long, and you just had the most beautiful baby. Great old big blue eyes. You were so beautiful. I dressed you like a girl.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it does explain a lot. I dressed you like a girl. Everybody say, that is the most beautiful little girl I have ever seen. I said, she is pretty, isn't she? And Charles yanked you up and took you to the barber shop and had those curls cut off. I was just furious.
They grew back.
He cut those curls off. Then, of course, I had Libby, and Libby had problems all of her life. I know y'all don't believe this, but she really did. She was bipolar. And I realized it in her teenage years that she had some real problems ahead of her. And it's turned out to be that precious. But she went to RN school, became a psychiatric RN nurse, and worked in mostly elderly people that were having trouble with all kinds of mental illnesses. So she keeps a watch on me because I've been crazy for a long time. Doctors always seem to think I was bipolar.
What was the most significant event in your lifetime?
The most significant event in my lifetime was having children, was having my children. That was the most significant thing in my life because I was raised with a big family, and the horror of my life was that I would not be able to have children. And the doctor told me I would never have children. I was weighed about 80 pounds, and I was heartbroken. I wanted a family in the worst way. And then, as it turned out, I just about had to raise them by myself because of the drinking. But I think the birth of my children.
So it wouldn't be like us landing on the moon or anything like that?
Well, we watched it. There's a picture of me watching it.
Sitting in front of the TV?
Sitting in front of the TV, but you can't tell what it
You can't
is.
tell what's
Yeah,
on.
that was amazing, especially since its name was Armstrong. That was kind of amazing. But happenings in the world, I guess that was one of the most significant things,
Well,
besides the war.
Now I remember when I was, I think in the 2nd grade or 3rd grade, you had cancer. What happened there?
I did have
What was that?
cervical cancer. I
Yeah.
had cervical cancer. But it didn't bother me. It's never bothered me since. I've never had it. I've been extremely fortunate to be as healthy as I've been. But I think a lot of that has to do with my walking 5 miles a day.
Yeah.
Because my legs are just like iron right now.
Yeah, I think all your boys have that too. So, give us some advice for our futures. What kind of advice would you give us about our futures?
Well, I think America is in for a rude awakening. And you better start saving some money, because within the next 10 years, America will be a totally different place. And I suspect that another religious war is, almost all of our wars have been religious in nature, but there's going to be a real conflict, and it will be a religious war. They're killing Christians by the dozens right now. And, I think the future is dim for America.
Yeah. Well, where do we go wrong?
Complacency. America, seeing what we see right now that's happening in the Muslim countries, America is watching American Idol. And we're going to regret the citizens of America had better wake up, and they better wake up now, because we are in for a dire future.
Okay.
I think we are anyway, but America has seen its best years, I do believe. Unless Americans wake up and see what's happening. And the citizens are the ones going to have to do it. The government's not going to do it. But I do believe our future's pretty bleak. I think y'all's future's pretty bleak. You better save some money.
Anything else you'd like to say? Any other
Well, I've
pearls of wisdom?
I'm happy with my life. It's been hard. I've had a hard life in many ways. But it's been rewarding. And although I moved forever and always wanted a home, Ricky saw that I had a home before I died. And I've enjoyed that house immensely. It's been my home, the only home I ever had. And I'm really, really, really proud of how my children turned out. And I know Libby is a pain and a problem, but I know she's a sick woman, very sick. It's not just bipolar with her. She's sick. She's mentally ill. And I would like y'all to be kind to her. If nothing else, be kind and include her in, because she's a sick person. I'm very proud I have no regrets. I'm ready to go tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I have no regrets whatsoever. And death is a natural end of life, and there's no sense in making a big deal out of it, moaning and groaning about dying. Everybody dies.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's the way it
And so,
is.
I've lived a long time. I made it forward. Whatever happens, big deal.
Okay.
Terrific.
All right. Well, that concludes us
Is that okay?
for right now. Yeah.